Hello, welcome to North Ronaldsay Science Festival. My name's Alex Wright. I've lived on North Ronaldsay for 3 years now. And today I'd like to introduce my daughter, Amanda Wright, who lives in Copenhagen, and she's going to be talking to you about carbon literacy. I'll hand you over to her now.
Hello, Mum. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of the North Ronaldsay Science Festival. It's great to be here online, coming from Copenhagen. So I'm going to talk to you today about the Carbon Literacy Project, which is something I've worked on both here in Copenhagen and also in Manchester in England. So what is this Carbon Literacy Project? So carbon literacy, to start, is the idea that we should all have an awareness of the carbon dioxide costs and impacts of our everyday activities and the ability and motivation to reduce emissions on an individual, community, and organizational basis. So that's like the central idea of what carbon literacy is. Carbon Literacy Project came around in 2011-12, created in Manchester, with the idea that Manchester was the place, we all know this, the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. So of course that led to massive changes across the world, lots of development, lots of amazing things, but also of course, it has had a negative impact on the environment. So they thought, this consortium of different groups, to create a charity called the Carbon Literacy Project that would help mitigate the impact that Manchester has had on the global environment. And it would do this through an education model, getting people engaged and activated in how they themselves can reduce their carbon impacts, but also how they can do that within the places where they work or where they study or where they live. And it's going well so far. Keeps more and more people. Every time I do a presentation on this, the numbers are going up, which is nice to see. So now 16,000 people are carbon literacy certified. And the crucial thing to that is, we can say that they're certified, but each one of those is making a pledge that's leading to them reducing their carbon emissions by 5 to 15%. So that's pretty substantial. And hopefully if we keep the momentum going, that will just grow and grow. And that's happening in 12 different countries across the world. And one of those is Denmark, where I am here. I'm just starting a new program. We've been doing it now for 3 months, so pretty new, our Copenhagen branch. I'll just tell you about some of the UK-based organizations which have become carbon literate. The BBC is probably one of the most well-known ones. And in one of their soap operas, a well-known calf now only serves vegetarian food as a way of sort of, educating people about how we can have different lifestyle choices which are lower carbon, but in a more subtle way. Another organization which you can maybe think how it's unlikely that they're going to be involved in environmentally positive actions, but of course they can be, is Basef, which is a massive plastic producer. And they're really committed to reducing their emissions. And also closer to home, Keep Scotland Beautiful is a big participant in the Carbon Literacy Project. And they've made very impressive pledges to do with children, actually, where they're aiming to have half of all Scottish school children become carbon literate in the next few years. Which is quite amazing. So what is this thing I'm saying, carbon literacy training? What does that actually mean? So don't worry, it's not a degree, it's not some huge thing. It's actually just 1 day of training. So 7 hours in class and 1 hour of pre-course work at home, which is often watching a film or a documentary. And at the end of that day, we hope that people will have a basic understanding of climate science, and we will have developed a common language to communicate the urgency of this issue, and individuals will be creating innovative and meaningful actions to drive sustainable change. And so the details of that day, how it looks, we start with about an hour of climate science, and that's done in an accessible way, but still, I think there's always something. I've had environmental academics who still find that they do learn something in this training. So it's taught in an accessible manner, but there's still a lot to learn. It's not like it's too basic. Then we look at carbon footprints. So that's the idea of we all have our personal sort of footprint that we make on the earth in terms of our carbon output. And we have a personal footprint, but then so does an organization, and in a big sense, so does a country. And here we take a special look at how different countries have different environmental, carbon footprints. And unfortunately, we see that richer countries have much higher carbon footprints, but they're also much less likely to be impacted by climate change. So we look at issues there to do with climate justice. And then we also think blue sky thinking, and so what will this world actually look like? It's kind of hard to imagine now when we're so carbon based. We're always going to be carbon based life forms. I mean, fossil fuel based economies, this kind of thing. So what would it look like to live in a world like that? And I think that people often think, yeah, it looks really good. Actually, it's kind of inspiring. It's not something where we're all going to be punished. We're actually going to have cleaner air and life's going to be nicer. So then after that, we look at how we can actually make our own personal planning pledges and what we can do to change and how we can make effective actions. And that's a review of that. And that could also be looking at how your organization can change. And then there's a big section on how do we talk about climate change? How do we engage everybody in this conversation that we have to have, because this is probably the most pressing, concern of our time. And by the end of that, then you become a carbon literate person when you submit your evidence form to the Manchester organization. And you can maybe go on to create your own training and train more people. And it has, I think that carbon literacy, one of its big strengths is that it's on this cascading model. So you can become trained, and then, later that year, maybe you can be going to your football club and training them. So it's really that everybody can participate in this conversation. It's not just like academics, although they're also welcome, of course. So looking at Scotland is got a good net zero carbon emissions target by 2045, 5 years before England, and also 5 years before Wales hopes to get down to 95%. So in order to achieve this target, all communities and business organizations across all sectors in Scotland are going to have to play their part in the transition towards this low carbon Scotland. And I guess the idea is that carbon literacy is just one part of this. It was going to provide the knowledge and skills around the climate crisis and help people figure out what they can do about it. And I think that I didn't talk about what is actually net zero. So net zero emissions means that there's still going to be some emissions that are going to happen. Maybe we can't remove everything. We still maybe have some small emissions from the aviation industry, this kind of thing. But that we will aim to, in Scotland, to offset those by also doing activities where we draw down carbon from the atmosphere. And that's called offsetting. So this is a pretty ambitious target, and there isn't actually that long to go, just a little over 20 years. So we have really got to, all of us, get going with this one if we're going to make it in time. And I think that the Orkney Islands are, I've just been doing a bit of reading about this. I've only been, unfortunately, once to the Orkney Islands because of Corona. I would have loved to come more, but I'll be back. I'll be there soon. But wow, what an inspiring place, and also in sustainability. It's really, far ahead of a lot of places. I know that, for example, you're already producing 130% of your energy needs from wind and tidal power. You've got really cool projects coming on to do with how you're going to store that energy. You've got hydrogen powered ferries coming and low carbon aircraft. So you have all of these really amazing projects, but maybe, and I don't want to speak for this, but maybe you might have a gap of understanding. Does everybody on the islands kind of know what's going on and know what it means? Because I think that's really important, that if we have these cool, huge projects, which are so actually, world pioneering, that every citizen should be able to engage in that and to know about it, and also to make their own impact. So I've got a bit of a suggestion, challenge, question. Could North Ronaldsay be the world's first carbon literate island? I think it could. I think you have the enthusiasm. You have this great scientific community already started up. You have such a good community base, and I think a lot of strong will towards sustainability and sustainable change. So that's my challenge, and I would love to speak more with you about it. And I can also help you if you ever wanted advice or anything on that. Everything from the Carbon Literacy Project is actually open source, so it's available to everyone. So you get this kind of core pack to put it together. You wouldn't be starting from scratch. So I think you could do it. And if you're just itching to get started with something right now, I can really recommend the Attenborough documentary, which is on the BBC, Climate Change, the Facts. It's a good kind of starting point on the climate science. This is actually one of the things we ask our students to watch pre-course. And it's a really good summary, and it's a bit sad. It's a bit like, wow, we really do need to get going. So I think maybe that might be the thing that can push you to build your own carbon literacy training. And that is it. Thank you so much for inviting me. I think we're going to have a chat now, aren't we, Mum?
We can indeed, yes. Thank you, Amanda. That was absolutely fascinating. Yeah, I think we can do something with this. Yeah, definitely.
I can see that you work so well on the island, especially you have some children now.
We do. We do. We have wonderful children here now. Yes, we need to be making this a better place for them as well. Yeah, I sort of don't really know much about this, and would love to learn more. And I think there's an enthusiasm for it, and also we have support over the year to put on more British Science Week projects. So maybe we can do a science, a carbon literacy activities as part of that. I think that would work really well. So we've got some other speakers as well during our festival. Hopefully we're going to have a speaker about a battery storage, community battery project. So I think that would tie in nicely with this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, these amazing projects, people need to know what is that actually, and why is it so cool?
Yes.
Like, once you can store your renewable energy, then you're kind of going to really next level. You can even export it ultimately. So.
Yes. Yeah, it's very interesting. In here, fuel wise, we sort of range from people like us who burn coal, and we also burn oil as well, heating oil, through to people with their own turbines and people with air source heat pumps. So we've got a nice range of examples to look at as well.
Definitely.
Well, I can't really think of anything else to say now. So I'm sure if anyone's got any questions, they can put them in the comments boxes below, and we'll do our best to answer them. And Amanda will join in with that. Yes. And I hope you enjoyed this. And thanks ever so much, Amanda.
You're so welcome. Thank you very much.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.